Hey, fantasy football fans. My name is Turtle. This is Outlier Fantasy, and today we're breaking down the 2024 tight end class and analyzing the potential impact they will have on our fantasy football teams. There are a lot of reports that this tight end class might not be that good. It might just be very top heavy with one guy that we all probably know the name of. But I'm going to give you 6 tight ends that we should be keeping an eye out for in our fantasy teams. So let's get started. First is a name that you probably already have heard once or twice, maybe even more, and that's Brock Bowers. Bowers is an athletic freak. Coming out of Georgia, he has freakish speed, has potential to constantly create explosive plays with his unbelievable catch radius, and has an ability to turn in even more yards after the catch. And on top of this, he's a great pass blocker. Bowers is elite and will find himself going in one of those, first top 15 picks or so in the draft. But let's play devil's advocate here and talk about what are his limitations that could keep him from being that Hall of Fame level tight end that we all think he already is going to be. When I look at Brock Bowers play, he is a man amongst boys in colleges and is an absolute dog. But will that same level of dominance transfer over into the NFL? If Bowers shows up to the NFL Combine this April and is still weighing in under 240 pounds, I could see him struggling to transition in terms of blocking edge rushers and linebackers that are in the NFL today. If he does weigh in at something close to 245 pounds or even 240 pounds, his weight is still kind of unsure. I had a hard time finding his real weight online. When looking him up, it said 230, it said 240 pounds. Now that could be that he was at 230 in his freshman season and put on 10 pounds since getting ready to declare for the draft. But if he's not close to 240, 245 pounds, I could see him struggling to block at the next level. For dynasty purposes, his draft stock deserves to be high, and even if he doesn't put on enough weight to be at that proper 245 level I just stated, he still has an amazing ability to catch whatever is thrown at him and make people miss in the open field. For redraft formats, if he's given like a landing spot like the LA Chargers, he's definitely worth drafting right after the middle rounds because of the potential that he could possibly bring and be that, that ceiling of like a top 5, top 6, 7 fantasy tight end this season. Looking at what Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid accomplished and factoring in that Brock Bowers is a much better prospect, much better prospect than those guys, Bowers should be a value depending on where his ADP kind of ends up, and we'll see what that looks like right after the Combine. Ja'Tavion Sanders is the next consensus tight end ranked over the unanimously number 1 ranked tight end Brock Bowers. Bowers is in a class of his own, no doubt about that, but I truly believe these next few tight ends are also similar to skill and talent when it comes to translating to the NFL. But let's go ahead and talk about the vertical threat that is Sanders. Sanders is probably the undisputed next highest rank given his speed, but also his age, as he's played one less season than most of these other guys that are coming out as top tight end prospects. There is a lot more of a future potential for Sanders versus him being ready to dominate and contribute to an NFL team right away in week 1. The flaws that come with Ja'Tavion Sanders is that he is not a great pass blocker despite his insane athletic frame that he poses. Depending on where he is drafted and if he can improve in his blocking ability, he can be the consensus number 2 tight end and possibly even an elite tight end in this league. He's best comparable to somebody like David Njoku, who has an incredible skill of going deep and catching the deep ball. He has elite speed and size, Sanders, but ranking him at number 2 is only if he does improve on his flaws of being a not-so-great pass blocker. For dynasty rookie draft purposes, I believe if, say, you wanted a certain player and they were taking right before you and you don't have an idea of who you really want to take in this rookie class, Sanders could be a great investment, but don't expect him right away to burst into the scene and be a dominant tight end right away. But by 2025, he should be someone that's considered an borderline elite tight end or at least a top 12 tight end in fantasy. Our third tight end on this list is a converted pass rusher and linebacker in Cade Stover from Ohio State. We know Stover is a great athlete if he transitioned over to tight end and has shown good ability in terms of blocking, but his solid inline blocking will keep him drafted high, which is why I'm mentioning him third. But I do believe these next two prospects have the potential to leap into being that second and third tight end prospect over Sanders and Stover. Are you ready for this next player? Because this is probably my favorite prospect after Bowers, and that's Ben Sinnott. Sinnott is that ideal size that I would like to see Brock Bowers trend towards. He's 6'4" and 245 pounds already, and coming into the combine, he has potential to put on even more weight. But I think 245 is a good number for somebody like Sinnott to be at. How could you not be a fan of someone who went from being a walk-on to someone who had 49 catches, 676 yards, and 6 touchdowns in their final season in college? Someone like Sam Laporta today is going to be an early tight end draft pick thanks to his phenomenal rookie season, but Sinnott's junior season was better than any season that Laporta had collegiately, and he beats him in every major receiving category and did all of that on less receptions than Laporta did. Sinnott also comes into this draft as being a great pass blocker, and I would consider him right after Bowers to be one of the best all-around tight end prospects in this draft. Depending on his landing spot in the NFL, I believe his skills will easily translate into the NFL very smoothly. He can run after the catch, he can beat man-to-man coverage, and knows how to sit in zone coverage and find openings. A lot of analysts are not so high on Sinnott, but to me, he's definitely worth a dynasty stash, and maybe even end up being someone who everyone's going to be bidding on in the waivers come that first 3 weeks of the season when we find out who's good and who's a bust and who has potential to be something better than what they already are. Next is Theo Johnson, and Johnson is an absolute freak out of Penn State in terms of size and athleticism. His 6'6", 257-pound frame makes Johnson a potentially lethal red zone target, which in fantasy, that's where all the big-time points are going to be scored. If you can grab those touchdowns are 6 points. You play in PPR, that's 7 points. Add the yardage on top of that, those are the points that you want to go after. Johnson has more flaws than Sinnott, which is why I have him ranked slightly lower. He needs to become a better route runner if he wants to make a huge impact in the NFL. But if we're going to say that Ja'Tavion Sanders is the second best prospect but still has to work on his blocking, then there's no reason why that Theo Johnson can't polish up his route running and become a great player in the NFL. Johnson is not an explosive runner, but if he continues to work on his route running and given a great opportunity like maybe the Jets who could use his red zone targets, Johnson could be a late round steal in dynasty rookie drafts. The last and final tight end on this list may be more of an honorable mention, but he's definitely my dark horse to being a great tight end in this league, and that's Brevyn Spann-Ford out of Minnesota, who is less talked about in terms of name and consensus than the other tight ends I previously mentioned. But Spann-Ford comes in at 6'6", weighing 267 pounds. His best trait is inline blocking, which should give him a great chance to wind up being a star in the NFL, but he lacks the ability right now to play vertically, unlike somebody like Ja'Tavion Sanders, who is a great vertical threat. In terms of running short and over the middle concepts, Brevyn has elite hands, and it feels like whatever is thrown his way is going to be caught with ease, and hones great ability to make catches in traffic, which should also translate to the league very well, and also sounds a lot like Sam Laporta coming into the 2023 draft. Brevyn suffered a bit in terms of drops in college on deep ball routes, but this is something that can be worked on. He is too good of a player in short to medium range situations, given his size and strength, to not have some kind of impact in the NFL right away. Despite needing to still improve in terms of adding to his route running and route tree, Brevyn has plenty of traits that will transfer over to the NFL right away, and that could lead to early success in his career, and is definitely worth a late round stash consideration, or maybe even in redraft leagues you want to pick him up after week 1 and just stash him on your bench. So those are my 5 and honorable mention 6th best tight ends that we should be looking at in the 2024 rookie draft class. If you like this video, please smash it with a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. If you're new here and you like the content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I would really appreciate that as well. In terms of rookies and analyzing who's going to be great, we will continue to talk about positions like running back and wide receiver as well. But I felt like the tight end position last year had some great value, and in 2024 looks to be the same, as we will get some guys that are kind of low-key and not talked about, but could possibly present themselves with great fantasy value in the future. That's all I got for you guys today. I'm Turtle signing out. Peace.